Andra, a man. That is the first word of the Odyssey. Not war, not glory, not even Odysseus. Just a man. A man driven across the sea. A man who will lie, suffer, disguise himself, lose everything, and still keep going. A man trying to get home. 20 years after he first left Ithaca, 10 years after the Trojan War, Odysseus wants only one thing. But what is a man after 20 years of war and wandering? Is he still the husband to the woman who has waited for him? Still the father to the son who was raised without him? Still the king if he enters his own palace dressed as a beggar? And what is home? In archaic Greece, there were stories about the heroes who returned back from the Trojan War. They were called nostoi, the returns. The Odyssey is the greatest story of homecoming, or nostos, the word from which we get nostalgia, a pain from longing for home. But what if a home is not just a place but a time, a memory, an identity that you used to be but not anymore? Ithaca may be one of the most famous destinations in Western literature, but in the Odyssey it is not just a geographical place, it is a dream, a shore Odysseus trying to reach, but does this shore still exist? The Odyssey is an extraordinary adventure. It has love, betrayal, magic, gods, jokes, and revenge. But before anything else, it is a myth of a man trying to return, and a home that may no longer be there. Because Odysseus will reach Ithaca. But will he ever truly reach home? The Odyssey does not begin where we expect a journey to begin. Not with Troy burning, not with Odysseus standing proudly on the deck of a ship, not with the heroes setting sail toward home. It begins in medias res, in the middle of things. And not even with Odysseus himself. He does not appear directly until Book 5. First, Homer shows us the world damaged by his absence. Penelope, his wife, is trapped in a house invaded by suitors who want to marry her and take over the wealth of the missing king. Telemachus, his son, is trapped in the shadow of a father and under constant threat from the suitors. And Odysseus himself is trapped on the island of Calypso, a beautiful goddess who wants to keep him forever as her husband. So the poem begins with a family broken into pieces. Each of them is waiting, incomplete, and longing for a world to become whole again, as they remember it. The world of the Odyssey is both familiar and strange. There are islands, ships, fathers and sons, kings, but at the same time there are gods, witches, monsters, ghosts speaking from the underworld, and songs so beautiful they can destroy anyone who listens. Something like magical realism, if we use a modern term. It is a world where each place has its own rules, and where every shore could be a shelter, temptation, or death. Mostly the latter. Odysseus does not travel through this world in a straight line. His journey circles. It moves forward, then throws him back again. He leaves one island only to be delayed on another. Every episode threatens not only his life, but his identity. The Lotus Eaters do not kill his men, but they make them forget why they wanted to go home in the first place. In the land of Cyclopes, Odysseus survives by reducing himself to a name that is almost no name at all. Nobody. In Kirkes Island, Aea, the danger is not death but postponement, the desire for rest, feasting, and, well, pleasure. The sirens offer knowledge and beauty, but their song is a kind of death. Whoever surrenders to it never moves again. And then there is Calypso. This is probably the greatest temptation for the hero. Odysseus spends 7 of his 10 years of wandering on Calypso's island. And at first, it seems like paradise. Everything is blooming, sensual, alive. Even Hermes, a god, is fascinated by it. Calypso offers Odysseus immortality, beauty, pleasure, and safety. What else could one desire after all this suffering and death? By this time, he has already lost all his men. But we find our hero weeping and looking away from paradise toward cold, dangerous sea, longing for Ithaca. And so he continues his journey, alone, toward home. To survive this world, Odysseus cannot be the simple kind of hero we often imagine. A purely strong hero would die here. A purely honest would fail. A man who knows only how to fight would be helpless before seduction or divine anger. In a world that is always changing, one cannot remain fixed. Adapt or die is quite literal manifesto for Odysseus. The world of the Odyssey demands another kind of hero. Odysseus must be polytropos, the man of many turns. He lies, waits, hides, negotiates, invents, listens, and adapts. Before he can return as king, he must learn how to become almost anyone. But the poem's hero is not the only figure of many faces. First, we should ask, who is actually telling the story? Before Odysseus, there was Homer. And Homer, too, is a mystery of identity. Homer is one of the most famous names in world literature. For centuries, people imagined him as a single poet, poetess, a Greek word meaning maker, the great maker of the Iliad and the Odyssey. But with time, this image became more complicated. Was Homer one person, several poets, a name attached to generations of singers? Was he even a historical figure at all? This uncertainty is known as Homeric question. It is not only the question of who Homer was, but also of how these poems became what they are. This is not unique to the ancient texts. Similar debates can be found around the traditional attribution of the Torah to Moses. In both cases, a culture places a one great name at the origin of a text that may have passed through many voices, layers, and stages of transmission. But the Iliad and the Odyssey have a much stronger poetic unity. They really could preserve a work of a single extraordinary author. But who was it? The dating of the poems and their language only adds more confusion. The poems likely emerged sometime around the 8th and 7th century BCE, but the world described in them does not belong neatly to one historical period. The language of Homer was not the ordinary speech of any single Greek time or place. It mixes dialects, regions, and historical periods. The epics seem to emerge from a long oral tradition. Before they became fixed texts, they were shaped by generations of singers, performers, formulas, repeated scenes, and familiar patterns. This helps explain why Homeric poetry is full of repetition. Dawn is repeatedly rosy-fingered, heroes are introduced with familiar epithets, journeys often follow recognizable patterns. For an oral singer, it was essential. A writer can't stop and search for a better phrase. A singer who performs before the audience cannot. Formulaic language gave the poet a structure that allowed the story to keep moving at the speed of speech. And yet the Odyssey is not just a loose collection of episodes. It has remarkable structure. The whole work feels carefully designed. It is too long, too sophisticated, and too organized to be imagined only as a spontaneous oral performance. So the poem stands between voice and writing, between tradition and design, between many singers and one monumental text. This is why Homer is such a fitting author for the Odyssey. We know the name but not the face. We inherit the creation but not the creator. He is both a person and a tradition, both origin and mystery. Like the world of the Odyssey, Homer is real and mythical at the same time. He is many-faced, just like his hero. You must be Odysseus, the man who can adapt to anything. That is what Kirke says when she first met our hero. I love this phrase. In the ancient Greek imagination, fate is not separate from character. What happens to a person is deeply connected to what kind of person he is. Yes, Odysseus suffers because the gods oppose him. The sea is hostile. Monsters and strangers constantly block or threaten him. But Odysseus suffers because he is also, well, Odysseus. He is restless, clever, proud, very proud, curious, deceptive, unable to stop, in many senses. This is why the gods are so interested in him. His destiny is not only imposed from the outside, it grows from within him. Odysseus is not the kind of hero we are used to. The modern word hero often suggests moral goodness, selflessness, sacrifice, nobility. But in archaic Greek, heros is closer to warrior. It does not necessarily imply virtue. Odysseus is brave, but he is also a liar. He is loyal to home, yet he sleeps with goddesses. He is a king, a leader, who loses all his men. The Odyssey does not flatter him. It allows him to be extraordinary and morally troubling at the same time. He is not perfect. He is not even simply good, but not because he is bad. He is just human. His story is about a man for whom the most heroic thing of all is simply to survive. Homer's first description of him is Polytropos, the man of many turns. The word refers to both his wandering journey and to his changing mind. Odysseus survives by turning away from danger, turning toward opportunity, turning himself into whatever the moment requires. He is warrior, beggar, husband, storyteller, king, liar, father, victim, and avenger. He can become nobody before the Cyclops and then become Odysseus again when pride forces him to reveal his name. His identity is never simple. He is many-faced because survival itself demands multiplicity. Odysseus feels like a very modern character, but not like a Marvel hero, more like a William Blake from Jim Jarmusch's Dead Man, or even a Kafka figure. Someone whose journey is not only about fighting monsters, but about identity, survival, and spiritual transformation. Penelope and Telemachus, wife and son, have their own struggles of identity. Penelope waits, grieves, thinks, schemes, and resists. Telemachus is physically grown, but not yet fully established as a man. The suitors threaten his inheritance, his authority, and even his life. Each member of the family is incomplete. Odysseus needs Penelope and Telemachus not just because they are people he loves. They are the living proof of the identity he is trying to recover. Husband, father, king. Penelope needs Odysseus not just simply as a husband, but as a shared order. Telemachus needs his father to secure his place in the world. Odysseus himself speaks of the importance of a like-minded husband and wife. Penelope is not merely a prize waiting at the end of the journey. She is his equal in intelligence. Like Odysseus, she survives by patience and strategy. She also lives among enemies. She also must speak carefully. She also must hide part of herself in order to endure. The bed in their house was built by Odysseus himself from a living olive tree. It cannot be moved without destroying it, so it is literally rooted in the earth of Ithaca. So marriage, house, and land are joined in one structure. Odysseus, Penelope, and Telemachus are like branches of the same tree, separated by time but bound to the same root. Their desire to reconnect is a desire to make life meaningful after catastrophe. This after catastrophe is everywhere in the Odyssey. The great heroic age of the Iliad is already over. Troy has fallen. The old glory of battlefield heroism no longer shakes the world. Odysseus moves through a post-war landscape of different ideologies and beliefs. He sees ruins, strange islands, dangerous hosts, seductive prisons. In this sense, Odysseus is perhaps the most modern ancient character. He lives after disaster, after certainty, after heroic simplicity. Constant self-reinvention feels very familiar, isn't it? Odysseus must decide when to speak, when to hide, when to become someone else in order to survive. But reinvention alone is not enough without a destination. Literature keeps returning to Odysseus, from Dante's Inferno to James Joyce's Ulysses, because he is not just one simple, fixed character. He is not the strongest man or the purest man, But he is the one who keeps changing without completely losing his dream. Because every age has its own journey, has its own monsters, has its own disguises, and its own Ithaca. Two modern stories immediately come to mind when thinking about the Odyssey: The Wizard of Oz and The Great Gatsby. The first connection is obvious. Dorothy's journey ends with the famous belief that there is no place like home. But Odysseus' desire is closer to Gatsby's. Ithaca is not simply a place he wants to reach. It is a dream of recovering a past life. Like Gatsby looking across the water at the green light, Odysseus looks toward Ithaca as if space could undo time. He wants to return the identity Ithaca represents: father, husband, king, master of his house, man recognized by his people. He wants the world before Troy, before age, before loss, before the long experience of becoming nobody. But the poem shows that such a return is impossible. Ithaca still exists as a place, yes, but the life he left there is gone. Ithaca is not identical with home, it is a dream of home. At the beginning, we see him making a choice. Calypso offers him what humans can only dream of: immortality. Her island is a place where nothing changes. If he stays with her, he will not grow old, face illness or uncertainty. At first, Odysseus' rejection of Calypso seems like a victory of home over temptation. But the irony is that by refusing Calypso's changeless paradise, Odysseus chooses time, and time is exactly what has destroyed the Ithaca he remembers. When he finally reaches Ithaca, he does not even recognize it. It appears strange, dangerous, and foreign. This is one of the most tragic moments in the poem. The hero has arrived at the place he spent the entire epic desiring, and it looks like another strange island. And Ithaca does not recognize him either. His servants do not know him. His son must learn who he is. Penelope doubts him. His palace is full of enemies. He returned not as a shining king, but as a stranger, an old beggar, almost impossible to connect to the man who left 20 years ago. Homecoming becomes familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. The palace is his, but not his. The people are his, but changed. He is himself, but not the same self. Meanwhile, Penelope has her own Ithaca. For her, Odysseus is not only a husband, he is the symbol of her former life. She has spent 20 years waiting, resisting the suitors, protecting the household, and living in suspended grief. Her beauty, marriage, and identity are all tied to the world before the war. She imagines that if Odysseus returns, something of her lost self may return with him. In Book 18 she says, "The gods destroyed my beauty that day my husband lived in hollow ships." And she continues, "If he came, I would regain my good name and my beauty." Of course, it's an illusion. Penelope has changed. She cannot simply become the woman she was before Troy. Even reunion does not give her complete closure. Her waiting may not truly end. Telemachus also lives inside an unfinished identity. He is the son of a hero, but not yet fully a man or a hero himself. His whole life has been shaped by his father's absence. Odysseus' return should, in theory, complete him. The father comes back, the house is restored, the son takes his place. But the poem does not fully grant him this. Telemachus never completely proves himself outside the shadow of Odysseus. His Ithaca is adulthood, recognition, and heroic identity. But that, too, remains unfinished. We all have our own Ithaca. Not just a place we miss, but a time we cannot return to. Like Gatsby's green light that you can feel, that you can reach. It seems like a place. Daisy's dog, Daisy's house, the world across the bay. But what Gatsby really wants is time to be reversed. He wants Daisy as she existed in his memory. Before marriage, betrayal, money, and history. Nick tells him, "You can't repeat the past." And Gatsby answers, "Can't repeat the past? Why, of course you can." He looked around him widely, as if the past were lurking here, in the shadow of his house, just out of reach of his hand. "I'm going to fix everything just the way it was before." He talked a lot about the past, and I gathered that he wanted to recover something, some idea of himself perhaps, that had gone into loving Daisy. His life had been confused and disordered since then. But if he could once return to a certain place and go over it slowly, he could find out what that thing was. Odysseus, of course, is not exactly Gatsby, but his life has also been confused and disordered since he went to war. Both figures are driven by the same dream, the belief that desire can cross the water and bring back what time has taken away. Yesterday always looks better than today, but constantly looking back is never a good idea, as Orpheus. Ithaca becomes not a destination but a dream that for a time gives the characters direction and meaning, but eventually the journey continues for Penelope, for Telemachus, and for Odysseus. Uncertainty is not a very pleasant state, but certainty is a ridiculous one. This is a rough translation of something Voltaire once said, and it could stand as an epigraph to the Odyssey. After 7 years with Calypso, Odysseus still chooses Ithaca. The logical question is, why? Even Calypso thinks it is an absurd choice and suggests that maybe Odysseus simply enjoys suffering. After all, why would anyone choose troubled uncertainty over certain eternity in pleasure? But we remember that in the ancient Greek imagination, fate is not separate from character. And if we consider Odysseus' character, we can understand why he made this choice. This immortality, this eternal life, is also a kind of stagnation. There is no direction, nothing truly changes. There is no future, no movement, no meaning. Odysseus chooses Penelope, Ithaca, aging, mortality, because by choosing death, he also chooses life. Even human death in the Greek imagination is not simply nothingness. The underworld continues existence in another form. Calypso offers Odysseus eternity, but the sea offers him meaning. So he chose the latter. For the Greeks, the sea was everything: trade, war, travel, wealth, danger, exile, contact with strangers, and contact with the unknown. It connected islands and separated families, and also exposed humans to the forces they could not control. The sea, therefore, represents life itself. There are no roads, you cannot control it. It can carry a man home and destroy him before morning. On land, people build houses, beds, kingdoms, and names. At sea, all of this can be stripped away. Odysseus loses his ships, his men, his wealth, his status, and almost his name. Yet this stripping away reveals what makes him Odysseus. He speaks, suffers, invents, and moves. Eventually, Odysseus achieves what he wanted. He returns to Ithaca, he kills the suitors. Odysseus fully covered in their blood, probably the most truly epic episode in the whole poem. He reunites with Penelope, he sees his father again, and you expect this to be the end. But Homer, just like his main character, does not stop so easily. He continues. The Odyssey ends with something surprisingly close to a cliffhanger. Ending feels open. What about the families of the suitors? How will they all live together after Odysseus' massacre? And what about the prophecy? We know from Tiresias that Odysseus still has another journey ahead. One day he must travel to a land where nobody knows the sea, where people eat food without salt, and where nobody has even seen a boat. Only there can he settle Poseidon's anger. So even after homecoming, Homer refuses to give us perfect closure. Penelope does not receive it, Telemachus does not receive it. Odysseus does not simply recover his old self as king, husband, or father. The Odyssey begins in the middle of things, and in a way, it ends there too. For Odysseus, the dream of home becomes part of the journey. With Poseidon, lord of the sea, as his great enemy, Odysseus is not just fighting monsters, he is fighting life itself. And against all odds, he continues. The English poet Alfred Tennyson wrote a poem, Ulysses, where he imagines the returned hero as unable to rest. He has come home, but home is not enough. The meaning of life is not only in arrival to the destination, but in movement, in seeking, in trying, in remaining open to experience even after age and loss. Odysseus is a great character because he chooses mortal life over immortal stillness. He chooses change, movement, and meaning. So the sea is still waiting, and he keeps going. And we all can relate to that. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield.